Hi again everyone, Natasha again from Snuggle Up Babywearing. So now we're going to look at some safety considerations. So one of the most important things to think about with your newborns is the fact that they don't really have head control yet. So it's going to be hard for them to look after their own airway and make sure that they can always breathe. Now to talk about safety, I'm going to use my little doll. This is one of my weighted baby wearing demo dolls, which will just be able to help me illustrate better some safety considerations. So with our newborns, as I mentioned, the most important thing when we're baby wearing, or with anything really, is making sure that baby can breathe. Kind of important. So if you imagine that baby's airway is kind of like a little bendy straw, and it's got a natural curve to it, natural shape. And if you were to put too much pressure on that bendy straw, so if the head was to bend forward down too much, that could put pressure on that little bendy straw and limit the amount of oxygen that can get through. Same if the head was to go back too far. If the head's leaning back too far, that can also put pressure on that little airway and make it harder for them to get enough oxygen. So that means when we're baby wearing, we always want to make sure that baby can breathe. So we want their head to be in that nice neutral position, not too far forward, not too far back. One way you can check is by making sure when they're in the carrier that you can fit 2 fingers between their chin and their chest, so that you know that their chin isn't really forced downwards onto their chest. Also, in regards to baby wearing with airway, that means you want to make sure the face is clear and uncovered. Just like all the safe sleeping advice, you want to make sure nothing's coming and covering over the face. So that means if you've got a carrier that's perhaps too big, then that could come up and have extra fabric over the face, which could restrict airflow. So you want a carrier that's going to fit and make sure that there's nothing coming up over the face. Also, that means specifically when we're baby wearing, that the position you have them on you, when they're in the chest-to-chest position, for a woman, you're going to want them up quite high so that they're sitting on this nice, firm, flat part of your chest. If you were to have them down lower, then the baby risks being in the more swishable material of your boobs, and they can end up nuzzling in and then cutting off their airflow with that soft area. So you want them up nice and high, sitting on this flat part of your chest, and that way you're able to easily monitor and make sure that they are breathing, and it's going to be much easier to keep them safe and ensure that they've got a clear airway. The next thing to consider in regards to safety is that you want to be able to be hands-free. When they're in the carrier, if you feel like you still need your hands to be supporting the carrier, then you might need to make some adjustments because it might not be adjusted properly. So you'll need to make sure that it feels tight enough as if it's like a cuddle in arms. If you were to cuddle them and they come closer towards you, then you might not have your carrier adjusted quite right and it might need to be tweaked a bit. You want to make sure that it's snug so that there's no way that they can fall out, but not over tight and not putting pressure on, say, their spine and things. So you want it to be a nice comfortable position that they're carried in that feels snug and secure. I'll cover that a little bit more when I'm doing some demos so you can see what I'm meaning. Another safety point I like to point out is just use some common sense. You know, if it's not something that you would do while you're holding your baby in your arms, then it might not be a safe option to do while you're carrying them in a baby carrier. You know, excessive exercise, using chemicals, climbing a ladder. You know, there are plenty of situations where common sense will tell you that that might not be a safe option to do while you're wearing your baby. There are also a few comfort factors to consider for yourself and for your baby. For your baby, you need to make sure that the carrier fabric height comes up to, for a newborn, usually sort of middle ear height. If it's down too low, it won't provide them enough support. If it's up too high, it risks covering that airway. As babies get older, you can go to the nape of the neck, and then when they're more toddler age, you can go to the armpit. But you need to make sure that fabric height comes up to give appropriate support. You also want, when baby's in the carrier, for their arms to be up, sort of into their centre line, so that baby can suck on their hands for self-soothing, and that they can push away if they need to make it comfortable. You want them to have a supported back, a nice supporting the gentle curve in their spine. You want the carrier to support the full base, so from one knee to the other knee. I'll show you that more when we cover the carrier demos. And then you also want them to have a nice pelvic tilt, and that means that they'll be really having their weight supported on their full base, so that they don't have a spine shape that's not quite ergonomically supportive for them. So we'll cover that off a little bit more when I do the actual demos, and then you'll be able to see the safety tips in action. Okay, next video we'll start looking at some demos.